You weren't like, I've got a panic attack. You're like, I can't breathe. I had been booked for a DJ set. I, left this set to come to Harley's showcase and I couldn't get to see him before. And then someone's run to me before the show's gone on and gone, Harley's disappeared, can you get him? And I was like, oh, and then I basically called Harley, convinced him to turn the cab round, but then when he turned the cab round, he had a panic attack whilst we were on the phone. I said, quick, pass the phone to the driver, which he actually managed to do. Neither of us understood what anxiety was. Like it's now, because it's so commonplace, it's a wild thought. But I actively remember like Googling anxiety and being like, what is this shit? Like,
and you came.
I came and got you and bought you some Haribo Tang Fasting.
Undefeated.
I can't really figure out what it was like specifically about that time. But I mean, I was in a really horrible place. You were obviously in like a deep, dark place as well, whether you knew it at the time or not. I was doing my solo music and I had a lot of mental health issues. The response of the label was like, oh, he's fucked it. Like I was at fault.
And then you developed like a panic disorder, right, which is quite common, I think.
There's a few different versions of what I think happened and why I went through that darkness during that period. But I basically just like ended up not being able to get on stage, essentially. I couldn't do it. Like,
people will understand how scary panic attacks can be.
I sometimes think maybe because I didn't have the blanket of like Jordan like next to me on stage, because I was always so used to having, when we perform, Jordan's definitely like more of the voice, I guess. You're really good at talking to the crowd. I got used to that, I guess, and then when I was having to be there on my own, maybe I found it really difficult. I think that the songs that I was performing as well were like very heartfelt, like heartbreak songs, and with Rizzle kicks, a lot of it's fun, uplifting and happy. And so then I guess like bearing my soul to a room full of people as someone who was like quite emotionally inept, I found that really difficult. Well, we've known each other for a very long time, technically for 30 years, with one big gap.
We went to separate schools, but then I'd merged friendship groups, and then Grit School was where we started to experiment with music.
Yes, Rizzle kicks, Dag Nabbit.
When we were younger, like teens, it quite quickly became clear we have different personalities. I was very hyperactive and I'd say like delusionally motivated perhaps. You were more grounded, rational. I think the first time that our relationship shifted was, 2 or 3 years of quite intense like promo and touring. We used to live next to each other. You moved across London and then you kind of developed your friendship circle and then I had my kind of like chaos circle. We both went through various, life changes. For me personally, I experienced quite a lot of grief in a short space of time in terms of like my grandparents and someone else close to me. And I remember thinking it was really difficult to process that in, like specifically as part of Rizzle Kicks, because our identity was like happiness and joy.
I'm living in a lost generation. I said I'm living in a lost generation.
I know you and I both struggled under the pressure of the label. Our first album did incredibly well, and that was almost a miracle. Now we've realised that from seeing loads of other careers afterwards. Even though our second album did well relative to music, it wasn't the same level as our first album, and that put us under quite a lot of pressure.
No, I very specifically remember being like shocked. Yeah. Because I guess you get into a position where everything was going so right for such a long time that you naturally just like, I guess this is just life forever now, isn't it? That's just how it's going to be, like great. Yeah. And then that first moment of like
didn't work.
Disappointment, I guess. I just don't think we were ever given the space and the time, the breathing time to understand like what we'd achieved at that age. And so like it was always just like, all right, you've done that amazing thing, like that's not enough, keep going, keep pushing, keep moving.
It's a tricky one, we don't wanna get tied down. Vibes come up and the boys in town. Wow, but you want a bit of us now.
I don't think I was a good pop star because I didn't understand adulation and like big groups of fans, and I didn't get that because I hadn't really come to terms with how I felt about myself. Ultimately what happened was we were put under pressure in the second album, and then in the pursuit of the third album, we both, you know, fell into difficult cycles. I fell into like quite a lot of drug misuse, drug abuse.
The music industry wasn't set up back then for artists who had problems with their mental health. It's not their fault that happened, but it should have been their responsibility to, you know, for a 22, 3-year-old boy who's like going through a really difficult time to, you know, be supportive through that time, and there was never that support.
I don't think I can say that I was like good at supporting you, other than I was interested. This was just before I started my mental health campaign. I did think, okay, let me learn more about it. And then so we were like on this journey together, trying to figure out like what anxiety means and how someone can go from being on stage for 4 years to not being on stage at all. And you get into like a deeper discussion about like where creativity comes from, and the fact that we've glamorized, you know, destructive behavior for a lot of artists. I think a lot of the barriers for people, I guess, men and boys, is the idea that it's an expense that comes with like little other than more mess and chaos. A lot of people don't feel ready for therapy, which is fair. I was very lucky that I had the time to do it. But once I opened that box, I remember I had a year of writer's block, and that was terrifying to me. Like it was.
Why do you think that happened?
Because I think I had associated creativity with pain. I had to put myself into these states of like almost anguish in order to create. And my therapist would say to me, "You can create from a place of love." And I just wouldn't believe her, but she was so sure about it.
I can feel this in my gut, this doesn't hit the same.
The entertainment industry is cutthroat, it's a meat market, it's who can press record the most, who's willing to give the most of their life, who's willing to work every hour of every day, like who's willing to, you know what I mean? Like that is the reality of that world. I don't agree with it. But it's hardcore, and I'll happily say right now that like I was too sensitive to being in that space as a young man. You know, people ask me a lot, what would you say if your kid wants to be famous at 20? And I was like, I would actively discourage them. Yeah. Wait until your late 20s, like get to know yourself, you know.
I mean, I would have loved our first album to pop off when we were like 28.
Traveling our troubles through the air. We don't need to worry about a thing.
We're here in the studio, we're making music at the moment. And for us, you know, we get a buzz because we put a song where people will get to like jump up and, you know, and that is like a spiritual, you know, there's always been music, there will always be music. It builds community music, it brings people together, it encourages people to move.
To make people feel good. There's no fucking chance I would have done this like 7 years ago. No way in hell. But like now, I couldn't give a shit now. I'll tell anyone anything. And like, yeah, I've had a lot of therapy over the years, but I never felt good enough. Maybe for me personally, it was because it was like I'm paying them to like listen to my problems. I guess maybe deep down it never felt fully like I was healing from that. Unconditional love that my partner had to just help me in that situation, and that's what helped me really helped me being able to talk. And now, yeah, I just talk about anything with anyone, and I don't feel shame, I don't feel embarrassed, and learning that was the biggest thing that helped me change my life.
We underestimate music is a form of therapy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, ain't nobody stopping me. Ain't my greens yet, ain't all of my broccoli. You wanna beef, well at least do it properly. Ain't got a chance, this ain't even Monopoly. It can't be you, this ain't even a lottery. Only thing I'm trying to smash nowadays is the glass in the ceiling on top of me. I'm trying to be peaceful and worry free, but some of these need a lot of me, honestly. Play ball, now it's time for